All right, let's see if we can get through one of these without coughing. I'm not sure that's going to be the case. Hey, Chris Graham here. We're going to talk some UVA basketball. We'll start with the rankings. It's Monday, and Monday is National Rankings Day. Virginia dropped from number 2 to number 6, was expected after the loss to Houston on Saturday. Houston went up from 5th to, what was it, 3rd. So a couple spots there for the Cougars. It's a good game. The game of Virginia will learn from. Houston will learn from as well. Um, and we broke that down in great detail on Saturday and Sunday, several stories across the Augusta Free Press platform. Other interesting notes, three other ACC teams ranked. Duke dropped 2 spots to 14. I'm not sure why. Virginia Tech's up a couple spots. They're 20 in the coaches poll, 21 in the AP poll. Not sure why. And Miami's ranked 22 in both polls, and we'll talk a little bit later. Not sure why on that one either. On the women's side, Virginia, the women are 12-0 and still not ranked. And it's just what it is. The NAT ranking this week, the computer ranking that the NCAA uses to help seed the tournament field, has Virginia 23rd, but Virginia is not in the top 25 yet again. They'll face Duke on Wednesday. Duke is 10-1. Their net ranking is 10, and they're not ranked. So they got a bigger case there as far as that goes. Somebody will win that game and probably still not be ranked after that one. And of course, with this weekend being Christmas, that's the midweek games this week are the games of the week. ACC's got 4 teams in the top 10 spots, 5, 6, 7, and 8. That would be Notre Dame at 5, Carolina at 6, NC State at 7, and Virginia Tech at 8. So it's a tough conference as far as that goes, right? Let's see, some more Virginia basketball news. We'll go back to the men now. And this was a surprise. I had not been hearing any rumblings of this. Virginia getting a midseason transfer. Now, Dante Harris, the former Georgetown point guard, will not be playing this season for Virginia. He could. He's a midseason transfer. He'd be eligible to play starting in the second semester, and maybe over the break too. I'm not sure exactly how that would work, but he's going to sit out the year because Virginia's got so much depth, obviously, across the board. But Harris is a guy that's the point guard of the future. Interesting development here. He was at the UVA Houston game this past weekend, and then afterwards announced he was coming to Virginia. He was a starting point guard at Georgetown for 2 years. He'll have 3 years of eligibility remaining because of the COVID year that you get extra. So if he would have at least, he'd have those 3 years if he wants them. Last year, averaged 11.9 points and 4.1 assists a game for Georgetown. Now, Georgetown, not good. 6-25 last year. They had 6 guys transfer out. He's now the 7th. They had 6 guys transfer out after the season was over last year. He's the 7th guy now. 6'0 junior. Had started 50 games total in his 2 seasons at Georgetown. He was the most outstanding player at the Big East tournament in 2021 when Georgetown made that surprise run all the way to the title game and won it, and then actually got their way in the NCAA tournament. Now his shooting numbers will scare you a bit if you're a Virginia fan, and if you're listening to this, watching this, you're a Virginia fan. 36.5% from the floor, 26.8% from 3. But I'm thinking based on another number. He shot 89.7% from the foul line last year. That's a usage issue more than a shooting issue. 89. You don't shoot just about 90% from the free throw line if you're not a good shooter. It's probably the lack of focus there, lack of something from the system there under Pat Ewing. Patrick Ewing is the coach there still. This is the 6th season. They were 6-25 last year. He's had 1 winning season in his 5 full seasons there. Not sure why he still has a job there. And that's probably big part of why Harris was looking to get out. Talented player like that. And he had a lot of choices on his list after his pretty good 2 years at Georgetown. Now, this is big for Virginia, not just adding a generally talented guy, but Tony Bennett had struck out on the recruiting trail for the class of 2023 at point guard. And so after this season, Kihei Clark at least, and probably Kihei and Reese Beekman both will be heading out. I think Kihei's eligibility is up, and Reese Beekman is likely a first-round draft pick at the end of this season. He's got another year of eligibility left. Actually, he probably have 2 years of eligibility left, I would think, with the COVID situation. But I think they're both gone. So having a guy like this who started 50 games in the Big East, it's going to be huge for Virginia. And let's see, I was scrolling through some notes here. I did an early look at what I think the roster would look like and the rotation would look like, more importantly, next year. I'm assuming Beekman declares and leaves when I give you these guys here. I would assume Harris at the point, Armaan Franklin, who has another year of eligibility left after this year. I presume he'll be back next year. He had indicated before the season that if he wasn't first round draft pick material, that he would be back. And I don't know that he's first round draft pick material right now. So Harris, Armaan Franklin, Isaac McNeely would be my starting backcourt, projected starting backcourt. And then in the backcourt with them, Elijah Gertrude, the 4-star combo guard. Here we go. Like 4 minutes in, I'm coughing. I would have him competing for minutes with Tane Murray, Leon Bond, a 4-star in this year's class who's redshirting for minutes off the bench. That's 6 guys competing for what are probably 4 or 4.5 spots. Now, when I say that, I'm slotting Ryan Dunn as a big. Dunn is getting half his minutes this year. I did a big chart earlier today, and you wouldn't want to see it. It makes no sense to anybody else. But Dunn is getting half his minutes at guard and half at a 3, 4, 5 position, whatever that might be. So I have Dunn in a mix in the front court next year with Caden Shedrick, the starter of 5, Isaac Trout, the 4-star who's redshirting this year, and then Blake Buchanan, the 6. Oh gosh, I'm sorry, but 4-star class 2023 recruit. So that's a pretty good rotation there. That's 10 guys competing for probably 7 or 8 spots next year. So that's the look at and that's huge news. Dante Harris, big news for Virginia. I wrote a piece today. Boy, I can talk better in my head than I can talk out loud right now still. I wrote a piece on Isaac McNeely and how he's stealing minutes. And Scott German asked me at the Houston game the other day. We noticed, you're watching the game, you kind of have the stats up, and but you're not paying attention to the stats minute for minute. And his question was, it seems like Isaac McNeely is getting a lot more minutes these days. I wonder whose minutes he's taking. And we both looked at each other and said, yeah, Armaan Franklin. I did another big chart. Again, you wouldn't want to see it. It's Armaan Franklin's minutes he's taking right now. Not all of them, but he's getting more minutes. Franklin had that 26-point game against Baylor back last month, that big win over Baylor. And since then, he hasn't done much. Just one double-figure game. Sorry, I am not as sick as I sound. This is just a tickle. They're averaging 7.2 points a game, shooting 35.6% from the field and 34.8% from 3. In his last 4 games, he's averaging 24.5 minutes. He'd been averaging 29.4 minutes before that. So that's significant. Now, McNeely, he was brought along kind of slowly. First 6 games, he was averaging 16.5 minutes a game. His last 3, he's averaging 23.3. He's right there with Franklin in his last 3 games. Now he's averaging 4.9 points a game, 35% shooting, 38.7% from 3, but he's getting more productive. He had 9 points in the Houston loss, 3 of 6 shooting, 2 of 5 from 3. And he's already got a cool nickname, iMac. I like that. I'm sure McNeely doesn't know what an iMac was from 20 years ago. And Bennett himself sort of admitted in his own way that McNeely is earned more minutes. You think and earned a bigger spot, not just the more minutes, but a bigger spot. The under 4 timeout, Virginia cut the lead down to 6. It was a big moment. Crowd's going crazy, and out of the timeout, they ran a play for McNeely and got him open looking. He did everything but going to the basket. It was down, it rolled around, came back out. It was everything but been in the basket. And as Bennett said, it was right there. Frustrating that it didn't go in. McNeely, he earned that. He earned the chance to, earned the right to take the big shot of the game, and it didn't go in. But good for the kid, and importantly, he's a defensive player for this team too. Armand Franklin is a pretty good defender. I don't think you think about his defense, but Franklin gives up 0.762 points per possession. That's above average. It's borderline elite. McNeely's given up 0.778 points per possession. So, the kid is playing defense. The kid is giving him some, options on the perimeter. Franklin's been disappearing a little bit lately, and if this keeps up, I don't know that we won't see McNeely getting even more minutes and maybe even a chance to start maybe this season. This is good for Virginia. Competition makes you better, and having these guys playing hard will in practice and in games will just make them all better. But the emergence of Isaac McNeely is good for this team. So let's look ahead to tomorrow night. We're roughly 25 hours away as I'm recording this. Virginia, Miami, Virginia number 6, Miami number 22. I looked at Miami, and their resume doesn't scream ranking except for the fact they're 11-1, and there's nothing wrong with that. Their best victories over Rutgers. Rutgers sneaky good. Ken Palm has them 27. I think their net ranking was somewhere in the 40s. But it's Rutgers. I mean, nothing against Rutgers, but Cornell put up 105 on Miami recently in a loss. It was just last week. Miami's big issue this year, they're 123rd in adjusted defense. They're really good offensively, the 12th offensively, but they're vulnerable defensively. I looked at the matchups. This is all on the website, AugustaFreePress.com. Isaiah Wong is the guy. You remember Isaiah Wong. He does everything for this team. 16.7 points a game. He leads in assists, 4.4 per game, 46.1% shooter. His 3-point numbers are down a little bit, but he's still the guy for this team. I'm presuming that Tony Bennett puts Reese Beekman on him. Beekman, when I looked at his numbers, he's actually not the defender he was last year. I think a little bit of that's the injuries. He's been playing hobbled the last 3 games, but according to Synergy Sports, last year he was elite. He was one of the top 4 or 5 defenders in the country last year. This year he's back towards average. So we'll see if he's a healthy Beekman, can match up well with Wong. He'll have to for Virginia in this one. Another matchup that's key in this game. It'll be interesting to see who wins the matchup. It's at the 4 spot, Jordan Miller, second leading scorer for this Miami team, 15.1 points a game, 54% shooter, 34.1% from 3. He's 6'7", so he's an undersized 4 already, and he gives up 50 pounds to Jaden Gardner. So who asserts the will? The bigger guy in the post or the faster guy that makes the bigger guy chase him around? Gardner averaging 11.8 points and 6.3 rebounds a game. So if there's an issue there, and also at center, we'll talk about, I'll go to the, if there's an issue there, part of this in a second. Norchad Omie, Arkansas State transfer, is a undersized 5. So they're undersized at both the 4 and 5, 6'7", 245. Now Omie averages 13.8 points, 9.9 rebounds. He's a 62.9% shooter. Caden Shedrick's got 4 inches on him. Now Caden is thinner, so this guy, he'll be able to back him down a little bit, but he's also going to give up 4 inches to him. But if Shedrick has any trouble, Bennett's been doing this already. He's been using Ben Vanderplas and Ryan Dunn a lot at the 5 when he spells Shedrick. Vanderplas had an awful day against Houston the other day. No rebounds. 0 for 7 from the floor, 0 for 6 from 3, 17 minutes, did nothing. He had an assist and a foul. Ryan Dunn got a little bit of time, not much time in that game, but Dunn has in his limited usage to this point has looked pretty good for Virginia. Another Miami guy you've probably heard of and you haven't thought of in a while, Nigel Pack. He transferred from Kansas State last year, and now as soon as I say that, you remember why you heard of him. He's the guy who transferred from K-State and demanded an NIL deal as he was transferring, and he got an $800,000 deal. So he got the money. His productivity is way down from where it was last year. Hopefully the ink on the contract doesn't magically go away. 17.4 points a game last year, 11.3 points a game this year. Shooting's way down. But he's still the guy that, attracted all this money. He missed now the game that Miami played most recently, a 91-76 win over St. Francis of PA on Saturday, but he's expected back for this one. The guy who played in his place, Bensley Joseph, a sophomore, actually had 14.7 rebounds, 6 assists in that win over St. Francis. So, if there's any issue with Pack, Joseph obviously is a very able guy to step in there at the point. One other matchup to get into, Wooga Poplar, the 6'5" sophomore two guard, 8.3 points a game, good shooter, 50% from the field. He'll either get Franklin and McNeely, probably Franklin and McNeely. And so looking at the projections, the computers have this one being a tight game. It's on the road at Miami, 8:30 tip. Ken Palm has Virginia 69-67, a 57% win probability. Bart Torvik's analytics website has Virginia winning 67-66, a 56% win probability. And ESPN goes in the other direction. They have Miami a 1-point favorite and a 55.7% win probability. So the key to this one for Virginia is Reese Beekman healthy. I mean, it's, this team is Reese Beekman's team this year. It's been designed to be that. And ever since he sprained the ankle against Michigan, and then that sprained ankle then metastasized, it seems like, into a injured hamstring, and then he missed the bulk of the game against JMU, and he wasn't healthy clearly this past Saturday against Houston. Though he played 31 minutes. He wasn't healthy for those 31 minutes. He hadn't practiced all week. He was very winded when he was out there, very clearly. And there's not a lot of time between Saturday and tomorrow night. Virginia gets a break after this until next week. They'll have Albany midweek next week. Virginia will likely, if he plays, and I say if, but if he plays, he'll likely just be out there to, just trying to get some minutes in, and then knowing he has another 5 or 6 days off between now and the next game next week. It's going to be a key matchup, him and Wong, certainly. For more from Augusta Free Press on UVA sports, particularly, had 4 pieces today on the UVA basketball team. Go to AugustaFreePress.com. If you have any questions for me, any criticisms about how I cough so much during these live to tape YouTubes, drop them at Chris at AugustaFreePress.com.